Mario, I was wondering if you would sell some of the blueprints that you have done. Let me know. Thanks. No. My designs, as most of you already know, are vehicle, woofer, and listener specific. In fact, a little while ago, I've been made aware of a thread on some forum where one of my designs was being very heavily criticized. And it turns out that the design didn't even come from me directly, but as a second-hand build from some shop for not only the wrong car but also the wrong woofer. So this kind of relates back to the whole cookie cutter mentality where people think that if it works in one place, it'll work every place. So they might get a really good design from me and they try to replicate it, only to have it fail, have them look bad, and then have me look bad, especially since every single one of my design ships out with a little, badge, PWK and so forth. So my name is on all of it, makes me look bad that way. So if you want peak performance, you pretty much have to engage in some degree of proprietary design. Alright, let's see here. Next we have Soundwave509, who says, I've noticed that when I sound dampen my roof, my SUV with MDF and foam, my peak resonant frequency went up from 42 Hz to 49 Hz. I assumed that it would go down with the characteristics of the wood. Is this normal? And I assume that the frequency will go up further when I MDF the rear quarter panels. Yes, that's actually normal. In fact, to help consider this simple analogy, a stiff woofer will more often than not have higher, freer resonance than a less stiff woofer. In fact, if you think about it, your vehicle panels act much like passive radiators in that they transfer acoustic energy from your cabin out, sort of like a passive radiator enclosure, the compression chamber being your cabin. So if you stiffen your passive radiators up, your Helmholtz resonance is bound to go up as well, and that's essentially what you're doing. Alright, next question comes from... I forgot my spot. Here we go. James T16, who says, how long did it take to grow that that beard? I don't know if I would call this growth or neglect. First of all, I hate the way it feels when it just starts growing in simultaneously. I don't feel like shaving it every day, so I figure I just let it do its thing, and this here is about 2 months worth. Alright, what's next? DGIBB79 asks, Pete, do you have plans on moving to Oklahoma and working with digital designs? Well, funny you should ask. Whenever Steve calls or comes down here to visit, he always tries to get me to start packing stuff to move. Technically speaking, I'm already working with DD, I'm just not working at DD. I wouldn't mind moving, but we'd first have to work certain things out, and mainly the sale of this house, the purchase of a new house in Oklahoma, and of course the move itself. If any of you have ever gone through the process of selling a house, you know that it costs quite a bit to sell a house because of all the inspections and whatnot that you have to fund out of pocket. Okay. CZman30 asks, Pete, how did you discover all these enclosures? Well, this might seem like a generalized answer, but using the scientific method, I would first pose the question of why sound waves in a certain enclosure behave in a certain way, and I would research the dynamics of the sound waves and develop several hypothetical algorithms that I would propose to myself to describe their behavior. I would then test the predicting accuracy of these algorithms to, in a sense, weed them out one by one, and if they were accurate enough, I would keep them and essentially start the process all over with more advanced enclosures and essentially arrive to the system that I use today. Okay. Soundwave 509 again is asking, I also noticed that you mentioned woodworking in episode 1. Now, with my second box in the plans, for my truck I would like to know some things to make the box MDF versus birch, or other materials primarily for rigidity in SPL or accurate sound reproduction and actual construction. I have used the pre-drill and screw with glue method, and I have used the glue and brad nailer techniques. Which will hold pressure better, or is there any large difference? Well, some people will claim that that they can hear a difference, but I have yet to see any conclusive RTA graphs that would show one way or the other. As for the screws and brad nails, as far as I'm concerned, they're just ways to apply temporary pressure until the glue has a chance to set. Once everything has bonded, there is really no function that these things serve, but at least with the screws, they can be backed out and reused at a later time with a new box. Okay. We've got Sitting Low 420, who says, there's a lot of misunderstanding as to what fuel small parameters actually mean. I get different answers to the same questions all the time as to what TS parameters and represent. I would greatly appreciate if you could describe what TS parameters are in terms that we the people can understand, and also how these different TS parameters will determine as far as how the sub performs compared to another, and box size and designs. Well, this can still be seen as sort of hinging on a cookie cutter approach of matching a number to an invariable characteristic or a set volume, regardless of what's going on directly outside of the enclosure or anywhere between the enclosure and the listener. As much as I hate to make generalizations, one rough assessment that you can make is based on the woofer's efficiency bandwidth product. Now, you can derive this by dividing the woofer's free air resonance by its electrical Q, and it can give you somewhat of an idea of how the woofer should be controlled for the flattest response. For example, lower efficiency bandwidth product values suggest more reliance on acoustic suspension and stiffer compression profile, whereas higher efficiency bandwidth products will suggest quite the opposite. Beyond that, the particulars of the alignment will depend largely on the surrounding environment. Alright, we've got... what do we got? We've got Sitting Low 420 again, who says, I also would like it if you could enlighten me on the port of a box. Will a larger, wider port produce deeper bass, sort of like a pipe organ? The longer the tube, the lower the note? And is port size determined by the woofer's TS parameters, or what? That's just it. I have no idea. Any information you could spare would be greatly appreciated, thus helping us gain better perspective as to what equipment to choose, box size, shape, etc. Thank you. Longer ports don't automatically mean deeper response. Oftentimes it can actually mean reduced efficiency along the bottom octave of the enclosure's response, but assuming that we're talking about fixed chamber volume and we're simply shifting the vent length and cross-sectional area up,